Hi everyone, Dr. Mike here. In this video, we're taking a look at the 4 structural components of the blood-brain barrier. Let's take a look. All right, so to begin, we need to understand that inside the brain, we've got billions of neurons and they are very sensitive to perturbation, meaning if something goes anywhere near them or surrounds them that can damage them, they're very sensitive to that damage. So it could be drugs, it could be toxins, it could be metabolic byproducts, it could be a whole range of things that shouldn't be there. Now, inside the brain, we have, so if you take a neuron like we have here, and you were to take a random neuron, and you were to calculate how far away is a neuron on average to its closest blood vessel, you'll find that it's no more than 25 micrometers away on average. That's very close. So these neurons are very sensitive to changes that are happening inside of our blood vessels. So what we want to talk about is how does the brain protect itself from anything that's circulating in the bloodstream, which could be anything we orally ingest or anything that we take in intravenously, right? It's all going to end up in the bloodstream. So how do we protect ourselves, right? There's going to be bacteria, there's going to be viruses, there's going to be pathogens, there's going to be toxins, there's going to be drugs. How does the brain protect itself? Okay, 4 structural layers of the blood-brain barrier. First one we want to talk about is that of the endothelium. So the endothelia. Now, what's the endothelia? I've spoken about it a million times in other videos, but effectively, it's the epithelia. So remember, the epithelia is one of the 4 tissues of the body. So epithelia will line hollow surfaces. A blood vessel is a hollow surface, so it's lined by epithelia. But when it is, it's called endothelia, right? So these are endothelial cells. Now, you might think, okay, but every blood vessel has endothelial cells. How is this different? Couple of different ways, or a couple of ways in which it's different. One is that they are non-fenestrated. So fenestration means porous, holes. There's no holes in it. That's how a lot of the things get through, right? This is a capillary bed that we're focusing on here. So this isn't an artery or an arteriole or a vein or a venule. It's a capillary bed where things get exchanged. And many capillary beds in the body are fenestrated, have holes. These ones do not. The other thing is this. If you were to have something like, okay, blood entering this capillary bed, how do the substances get out? Well, one way that they can get out is through the fenestrations, the holes, not happening, it's not fenestrated. The second way is that it can move through what's called a paracellular route, okay? So the non-fenestrations, right, this is stopping what's called transcellular transport, right? So you go, okay, we've got paracellular transport. We can just move things between the cells. But here's what happens. The endothelial cells produce proteins that fuse the gaps shut. And these are called tight junctions. So proteins that fuse it shut. So it is these tight junctions that end up going, no paracellular transport either. Then you might be thinking, okay, so then nothing gets through, so how do we get the nutrients we need, right? How do we get oxygen? Well, easy. Oxygen can move through because gases can just undergo simple diffusion, right? So you can go, I'll do it like this. You can say, okay, gases, that's all good. That's simple diffusion. Right? You can go lipids, so fats or anything that's lipid soluble, that's fine. It's also simple diffusion. But then you've got things like glucose, which is charged, can't get through. Amino acids, which are quite big and also charged, can't get through. So we need certain transporters. And so we're going to have these transporters or channels, right, for things like glucose and amino acids. So thankfully, glucose, which I'll pop here, and amino acids, they can also get through, but it's not simple diffusion. What do we call this? Facilitated diffusion. All right, wonderful. Now, here's the other thing, right? We're going to have circulating in this bloodstream Things like, I don't know, neurotransmitters, right? Monoamine neurotransmitters. What are monoamine neurotransmitters? These are things like dopamine or noradrenaline or serotonin, right? Serotonin. These are floating through our bloodstream because our body will produce these in some regard. But we don't want our brain to be influenced by the neurotransmitters that it's circulating through the body. They have their peripheral effects, but then they also have their central nervous system effects. But we don't want one to influence the other, meaning we don't want the body, if it's dumped a bunch of dopamine into the system, to affect the brain. You probably didn't know that, but we don't want that to happen. So what happens is that the endothelial cells produce something called monoamine oxidase, right? A little gobbler. And monoamine oxidase destroys monoamines like dopamine and noradrenaline and serotonin. So this is another blood-brain barrier support mechanism, having an enzyme that stops molecules getting through, even though that the body produced them, that shouldn't be getting through. Okay, so that's the endothelial layer. The next layer that we have is called the basement membrane, also known as the basal lamina. So every single epithelial layer will be sitting on top of a connective tissue layer called the basement membrane. So the blood vessels and the neurons are no different. So here we've got our connective tissue layer, which we call the basement membrane. And it's connective tissue. Okay? So what do we know about connective tissue? Well, this type of connective tissue is going to have a bunch of collagen, for example, and proteoglycans, just as an example. Now, both of these things create a very dense environment that stop things from moving through, but also they're negatively charged. So it creates a charged environment that stops things from getting through that are overly charged. So that's the second thing. The third structure are called pericytes. Now, pericytes are actually embedded in the basement membrane, right? So I'm going to draw a pericyte here. I'm going to draw a pericyte here. So it's best to see it if I do a cross section. So if I were to do, always drop a marker at some point in the video. So if I were to do a blood vessel, here we go. Here's the endothelial layer on the inside of it. And then we're going to have the basement membrane here. And like I said, you're going to have a pericyte here. What you're going to find is that the pericyte actually wraps itself around the majority of the blood vessel. And you're going to have another pericyte. Here's one here. Does the same thing. Now, wrapping itself around does a couple of things. One is that it can change the diameter of the blood vessel. It can contract. It can contract and change the diameter. So dilation or constriction. Now you might think, doesn't smooth muscle dilate and constrict blood vessels? It does in bigger blood vessels like arterioles, right? And sometimes arteries. But this is a capillary bed. There's no room for smooth muscle. So all the constriction and dilation, it happens with the pericytes. That's another way to limit what's getting through. Okay, so constriction, and obviously dilation through relaxing. But also what pericytes do is it just checks on the endothelial cells and the tight junctions and make sure everything's okay. So it basically ensures a healthy environment. That's really important. Now, it does some other things that aren't involved in the blood-brain barrier, like it can induce angiogenesis, so the creation of new vasculature by popping off and inducing more endothelial cells to grow. But that's another one of the pericyte functions. All right, the fourth and final is that of the astrocyte foot projections. So you're going to have these glial cells called astroglia, and they have these foot-like projections like this, which also surround more than 95% of the blood vessel. So let's write this down. Number 4, astrocyte foot processes. And so by surrounding it, it does a couple of things. It ensures what gets through is supposed to get through by basically hugging it and covering it. But again, similar to the pericytes, it makes sure that the basement membrane is okay and functioning well and healthy. The pericytes are okay, the endothelial cells are okay, all these important structural components are okay. So similar to the pericytes, it ensures a healthy environment. Beautiful. Now, the final thing I want to talk about, I know I said 4, but let's argue that maybe you could call this number 5, is that we have things called microglia. And these microglia are like macrophages of the brain. So the microglia will eat anything that shouldn't be there. So they're immune cells. So they act like macrophages even though they don't come from the same bone marrow lineage that the rest of the peripheral macrophages do. All right, this is the blood-brain barrier. I'm Dr. Mike. Hi everyone, Dr. Mike here. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. We've got hundreds of others just like this. If you want to contact us, please do so on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Dr. Mike Todorovic, at DrMiketodorovic. Speak to you soon.